What's up, y'all? It's your boy Sean P back again with another edition of Hip Hop Roundtable Reviews. So today, we're here to talk about another album that just dropped this Friday, which I actually previewed yesterday when I did my Freddie Gibbs 1995 review in prep for Alfredo 2 that drops next week. So we're gonna talk about the Raekwon album that dropped and Emperor's New Clothes that dropped Friday just came out. Um, it's one of the Nas Legend Has It series. Slick Rick was the first one, which I actually didn't review. I was meaning to review that, but I didn't get around to it. Um, Real quick, I wasn't that impressed by that. But anyway, as I digress, Raekwon dropped yesterday, and it's a very interesting project. I think it's something that definitely should. It's going to make a little bit of noise, given we have a lot of hot hip hop coming out now. And so we're going to I'm going to talk about what I liked, what I didn't like, sum it up in the end, and really what this album means in the scope of 2025 hip hop. Or 2025 is flying by. You know what I mean? But what I will say is that for the first half of 2025, it was so dry as far as some real landmark hip hop to drop. I know Two Chains and Larry June dropped something with Alchemist. Um, Lloyd Banks had a dope joint, but it's kind of the same project that he's put out for the last 5 years. But there were a couple of joints that came out. I know Dave East and Young Chris dropped something, which I'm thinking about doing a quick review on. But nothing really that stood out until last week when Clips finally dropped. Uh, uh, Let God sort them out. You know what I mean? So um, back to Emperor's New Clothes. Let me go ahead and pull that up so we could start talking about uh, the new Raekwon album. So, just to bring us back up to date, this is Raekwon's first album in, I believe, uh, 7 years, 7 or 8 years. 2017, actually 2017. So that's more like 8 years or so, and that was the Wild, which was a dope project. I actually liked the album he put out in 2015. What's the name of it? Fly Luxurious Art or something like that. Let me go back down to it. Yeah, Fly International Luxurious Art. I like that. And I did like The Wild too. The Wild was a dope project that dropped in 2017. But these were albums that really, I would say, never stood the test as being, how should I say, album of the year contenders. They were dope projects. They stood out only in select audiences. If you were a boom bap head, those were the type of albums that you would listen to, and they would probably be on your list, but they probably wouldn't make an album of the year list. But overall, Raekwon has a very dope solo catalog. But this one right here is an interesting project in that he moved away from more traditional Wu and RZA production, and I think I know Justice League did some beats. Um, who else did the production on here? Let me see production on new Raekwon album. Production Emperor's New Clothing. Couple of notable guys. Production on yeah, but we're gonna start off with what I'm gonna talk about is what I like, what I didn't like. and we're gonna sum it up in the end. But the production did stand out on this. I did enjoy the beats on here. I think it provided nice balance. Um, Album. Just let me go ahead and try and pull this up. Yeah, I mean, Swizz, Justice League, Knots, and Frank G. I mean, a couple notable producers. I mean, Swizz and Justice League stood out, but a couple of other guys like Knots, I've heard of him before, and he did some work on some other dope, East Coast centric projects. But I like the production on here, man. I think it provided nice balance on here, a nice amount of energy and a street vibe to give the tone that Raekwon wanted. So I like that. I like Ray's flow on here. I liked his mic presence on here. This is the most, how should I say, he sounded reinvigorated. He sounded energized on this. His flows were sharper. His energy, his diction was tight on here. You know what I mean? He still stayed within the context of a traditional Raekwon flow, but it was less monotone and he was more animated on this project that I did realize, and I do like that. So some of the joints I like the start off track, Bear Hill, gives a nice energetic bounce to the album. After that, I like the posse cut with um Conway the Machine and Benny the Butcher, Wild Corsicans. It could have been a little bit better, but still was a dope song. I like One Life, which kind of breaks down, the older generation of hip hop, and like I like that vibe on there, and I think Stacey Barth produced nice balance on there with that hook she got. And then I think one of maybe the hardest track on here. I don't know. I'm going back and forth as to if this is the best track or another track that I'm going to get to is hardest. But this 600 Schoolboy, all three of these legends, Ghostface, Meth, and Ray, brought it on this. The beat was really modern. The beat was just a hard street energy to it, and I'm really vibing to this. This is definitely a track that you're gonna want to rewind. Definitely, I like the heavies, which is more a smooth vibe type of boss up record. You know what I mean? Talking about fly boss braggadocio. I really like the vibe on that. That's another joint I rewind. And this is the other track I got to get to, the Omerta, which, as I said, a couple nights ago, they will be talking about this song. This may be the hardest song on here, and I tell you what, we talk about the great duos of Ray and Ghost, and Styles and Havoc, groups like Mobb Deep, even the Clips, as far as great chemistry together, going back and forth. I tell you what, man, Nas and Raekwon is an underrated duo because from this song to Built for Cuban Links, to Shaolin versus Wu Tang, Nas and Ray always come together and produce a fire joint. I know Rich and Black was one. I think the Rich and Black was the one on Shaolin versus Wu Tang that I mean is a classic street joint with two of these legends on here. And the Omerta, I probably have to give this the better the best track on here. People was comparing it. I know in my group they was comparing it to Nas's feature verse on the Clips album on Chandeliers that he did on Let God Sort Him Out. Yeah, this is definitely a more in-depth and verse, but I think with Chandeliers, I think that fit the tone of the Clips album better because I think Nas purposely did that verse not to overshadow how hard uh, Malice and Pusha was going at. So I do agree. This is a harder track, but I think Nas had these verses tailored to the context of these albums, because this verse on Omerta definitely fits the tone, that hard street energy, and Nas gets a little bit into his, you know, street philosophy, if you will, um, on this track. So he kind of goes deep, you know what I mean, with some of his metaphors that he got on there. So I definitely like Omerta. It's between this and 600, and I probably have to give it to Omerta. Omerta is the best track on here. Then I want to say the other two Ghostface tracks were dope. They were more smooth records. I like Get Out of Here more than Mac and Lobster. Mac and Lobster is more of like a chill vibe track to vibe out to. So definitely I was feeling that. What I like the length of this. It's mostly shorter songs. Most songs are, under or around that 3 minute mark. You know what I mean? Which is kind of the vogue now. You know what I mean? So overall, I was impressed by this album, top to bottom. Only thing I didn't like, a little too many skits. I'm not a skit guy. Like, skits really ain't my thing. As far as rap albums are concerned, unless it's like a double album and you have time where it's like you're watching a feature film type of deal, and the skits are really, really creative. I'm not really a guy that's big on skits. Just get to the rap and the music. And even though the skits were okay, they didn't take away from the album, but I definitely wasn't feeling like listening through skits. I usually skip through them anyway. And other than that, pretty dope record top to bottom. I can't say anything that was out of place or didn't fit the scope of the album. You know what I mean? Maybe a couple of songs were kind of slow. You know what I mean? But outside of that, pretty dope energy around this track, around this album. So I'd say that. So what are we looking at here? I'm going to go with a solid 8 out of 10 with legs, though. I think this album has legs to grow. I think that could it be album of the year contender? I gotta see. I gotta see how this album grows on me. Right now I think it's a notch below the Clips project. Is it better than or on the same level as um, Larry June and 2 Chainz? Maybe on the same level. I say maybe the beats on that are a little bit better, but that's 100% Alchemist on that joint. But I think this is a top 10 project of this year, definitely. I think Raekwon put out another dope album. Now, the only question is, how much staying power is this album going to have? Is this going to be something that grows on you and something that, you could feel, like really feel? Like, I put it to you like this. I listen to Let God Sort 'Em Out. I'm rewinding. That album right now is on a trajectory. Let me say that right, to be a classic. Let God Sort 'Em Out is the hardest album I've heard in a long time. We're gonna get to it, but I'm gonna start. I already started the discussion of this versus GNX, which is last year's best project from Kendrick Lamar, and that's definitely a viable discussion. But I don't think this album, Raekwon Emperor's New Clothing, is on that level, but I think it's just a notch below. But that's not a knock to that, because this is a fire album. This is a dope project. Solid 8 out of 10. Definitely check this out. You will be impressed. I mean, you can't beat dope street lyrics, bars from some of the best legends in this game, nice features, and good production. all around. Like you will be entertained by this album, especially if you're a real hip hop head and you're a fan of the culture, real hip hop culture. This is definitely that. And Raekwon comes out with another solid, uh, another good project. You know, really, and you got to start to think: is his catalog really underrated? You know what I mean? Because he has built for Cuban links. You know, he did the Immobiliari. I want to say end of the '90s. I think it was 1999. That got kind of didn't get its due. It wasn't that good. Let's put it that way. But when you're following up Built for Cuban Links, what do you expect? Of course, you have Built for Cuban Links 2, Shaolin versus Wu-Tang, which are fire albums. Definitely in the discussion as some of the top albums of that year. You know, and you have his latest run, which was Solid the Dope, from the Wild to this album. So I don't think he gets enough credit for putting out a pretty good discography, Raekwon. But this definitely fits in to that. Emperor's New Clothing's definitely check that out. I'm gonna have some more in my next pod. I'm gonna talk about Omerta. I want to go more in depth about that record and really what it means. You know what I mean? Because I think that's probably the standout track on this album. And of course, it's another Fire Nas feature where slowly but surely, because Nas is coming out with his feature album with Primo this year, Nas is getting himself back in the conversation of being Artist of the Year. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, let me not get ahead of myself. Check this out. Emperor's New Clothing, Raekwon. If you're a fan of the hip hop culture, you're a fan of real rap, you're gonna like this. Strong 8 out of 10 with legs, maybe moving to 8.5. We'll see how the staying power stays with this, but solid 8 out of 10. I'll definitely check that out. All right. So I'm gonna be back with a new pod pretty quick. I'll be back soon and I'll check you all out in a little. All right. Peace.